Hello everyone, welcome to another lecture of general medicine where I make a dreadful topic easy to learn. And for that, I shall be referring to the book on mind maps for general medicine by MediStudy Go. This book contains every topic in pictorial format as you can see over here, and you can mark in this book and learn it pictorially. So let's get into the topic for today, which is pulmonary tuberculosis. As I always say that every topic must be studied under certain headings so as to create a storyline which makes it easy to remember the topic. So starting with pulmonary tuberculosis, the first and the foremost heading which we need to know is the introduction of what is this disease. So pulmonary tuberculosis is a bacterial infection which develops commonly in the developing countries wherein the protocols of sterilization are not so strict. It is of two main types, which is pulmonary and extrapulmonary. As the term suggests, pulmonary will be something which involves the lungs alone, whereas extrapulmonary will involve organs other than lungs as well. So pulmonary is present more than 70% of time and affects the lungs, whereas the extrapulmonary is present other cases. The risk factors for having pulmonary tuberculosis include that it can be in low socioeconomic status patients, a recent tuberculosis exposure of the body wherein the secondarily pulmonary infection has happened. They can be immunocompromised patients like HIV patients, chronic illness patients on certain medications for diabetes, hypertension, malignancy, etc., and even healthcare workers who are being exposed to patients which are contaminated with tuberculosis. Also, what is the prevention for tuberculosis? It is the BCG vaccine which is given at birth. This is the basic data about what is this infection and what is tuberculosis. If we move on specifically to the pulmonary category of tuberculosis, it can be categorized into further types. So the types of pulmonary TB, the subtypes actually, they include primary TB, post-primary TB and miliary TB. Now, primary TB, if not treated, can lead to progressive form, which is the progressive primary TB. So the primary TB is mostly asymptomatic and usually involves the middle and the lower lobes. So we know that lungs contain lobes, and this one involves the middle and the lower lobes. For the post-primary TB, as the term suggests, it is something after the primary, therefore it is called as secondary TB. So it happens when reactivation of latent infection occurs. So first time the bacteria was inhaled by the person, immune response was there and primary action happened. That is primary TB. Now sometimes the body works against the bacteria a lot and the bacteria becomes latent inside the cells of the body and stays quiet for a long time. And whenever the environment seems necessarily correct for the bacteria, it gets activated again and leads to the secondary infection, and that is secondary TB. So this is localized mainly to upper lobes because mostly upper lobes have a higher circulation and therefore the bacilli can usually multiply easily in the upper lobes, and it presents with classic symptoms of TB. Lastly, there is a miliary form of TB, and as the term suggests, it contains millet-sized lesions of up to 1 to 3 mm in size, which can get impregnated into different organs of the body. Therefore, it is a severe form of TB and spreads because of hematogenous spread of infection. So if something has involved the blood, then it is not stoppable and therefore it is a more severe form. After we know the common types, what is the most common agent or the only agent involved in causing tuberculosis? It's Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So this is a gram-negative acid-fast bacillus. Therefore, if you do acid-fast bacilli test, it is going to be positive. The cell wall is rich in mycolic acid and peptidoglycans, which both act as the antigen for this bacteria. It is facultative intracellular bacterium, which means it likes to reside inside the cells of the body and takes nutrition from feeding on them. Now, when this disease is happening, what exactly is happening in the body, which is leading to so many symptoms and deranged metabolism in the body? So what is the pathophysiology of this disease? Now, we know tuberculosis is mostly infected into the body via the inhalational or the lung route. So when a patient inhales the bacilli, these bacilli try to enter the macrophages and live in them. These macrophages, they keep the bacteria inside, thinking a part of themselves only. But in 2 to 4 weeks, the T cells get activated and the immune response starts. This immune response leads to the formation of Ghon's complex, which is a characteristic feature for pulmonary tuberculosis. Now, this Ghone's complex can either get into a latent stage wherein the bacilli are overcome by the macrophages and the bacilli they become latent, or this Ghone's complex can burst and it can release the bacilli into the blood, leading to a secondary or a severe form of tuberculosis to be spread. So if we see here, the pathophysiology includes the droplets from an infected person on any source by which the tuberculosis bacterium is entering. It can lead to primary TB or progressive primary. So firstly, primary TB will happen. In primary TB, in the 90% of cases, Ghone's complex is formed, which is not really symptomatic in terms of necrosis, etc. So this heals by fibrosis and calcification in 4 to 6 weeks and no severe symptom happens. But this leads to latent stage of the bacilli and no action. Now, this latent tuberculosis can reactivate after years or in some time also, which can lead to the progressive form. The progressive form happens when the Ghone's complex actually bursts. When it bursts, the granuloma is formed, which contains caseous necrosis, Langerhans cells, and epithelioid cells, and forms a cavity in the lung. This cavitated lesion is actually the most infectious form and debilitating in nature. Now, when granuloma is formed with caseous necrosis, this leads to secondary or the post-primary TB. This post-primary TB can actually spread via blood, which leads to hematogenous spread and bacteremic condition in the whole body, or it can even spread to the other organs via the blood, that is extrapulmonary TB. If it stays in the lungs, it can lead to the formation of miliary tuberculosis, wherein millets of 1 to 2 mm sized millet-sized lesions are formed in the lung, which is known as miliary foci. So this is the basic pathophysiology by which a person inhales the tuberculosis bacilli and what all symptoms or physiologic reaction is seen due to that inhalation. Now, coming on to what's Ghone's focus or Ghone's complex. So in the Ghone's complex, it is basically a lesion which contains the bacilli. Now, upon reactivation or any specific trigger like immunocompromised state, etc., this Ghone's complex can burst and it can lead to a central caseous necrosis followed by epithelioid macrophages on the side and Langerhans giant cells. This leads to the formation of Ghone's focus, which contains necrosing nature in the center of the lesion. This leads to cavity formation in the tissue and the organ of the lungs. So this is a more debilitating situation where the lung tissue is actually being destroyed. And this feature is characteristic for the presence of tuberculosis. After we know how the disease is spreading, we need to know what are the clinical features with which the patient presents. So there is a triad of prolonged fever with night sweats. The cough lasts for more than 3 weeks and the patient experiences weight loss because it is a situation of immunity being compromised, appetite being lost, which leads to weight loss. So the common clinical features include cough, hemoptysis, which is presence of blood in the sputum or the vomit, loss of muscle mass due to fatigue, dyspnea, chest pain, and lymphadenopathy. Because the lymph nodes, they try to act against the bacilli and they swell up in size so that they can function more. This leads to lymphadenopathy. So these are the common clinical features which you encounter for pulmonary tuberculosis. Once we know the clinical features, we need to know how to investigate a patient and come to a confirmatory diagnosis for pulmonary TB. For that, the first and the foremost choice is sputum smear. The patient's sputum is collected and testing is done for the demonstration of bacilli of Mycobacterium TB, which is done via Ziehl-Neelsen Stain or the Auramine Rhodamine fluorescence stain. Now, what is the difference in these two tests? So, Ziehl-Neelsen Stain shows a red-colored bacteria on a blue-colored background, whereas Auramine Rhodamine shows a bright-colored bacteria on a dark background, as if some fluorescence is happening. So, these two tests can be shown for the demonstration of bacilli being present in the patient's sputum. Secondly, you can do culture, wherein detected bacteria are seen. And relatively, it is a slower test because obviously culture requires some incubation period, after which the bacilli will flourish and be positive on the smear. Next, we can do some molecular methods like the nucleic acid amplification test, wherein the nucleic acid of the bacilli, which is the DNA or the RNA, it gets amplified and comes positive in the test if the bacilli is present. It's a faster test, but obviously more costly because it's technologically advanced. The hallmark test is hilar lymphadenopathy, which we see on the scans. So imaging can be used for fibrosis, consolidation, viewing, and pleural effusion or miliary pattern to be present in the lungs. These hallmark features can indicate the presence of pulmonary tuberculosis. Lastly, we can do skin test, which is Mantoux Test, which shows the sensitization by TB bacteria. When this skin test is carried out, a certain agent is used and that shows a reaction against it, which means the bacilli is present and the skin has been exposed to tuberculosis bacilli. This is how we can confirm the diagnosis for pulmonary tuberculosis. Now, moving ahead, after diagnosis, what's important is the treatment and the prognosis of such patients. Now, for the treatment, the classic treatment for tuberculosis involves the HRZE therapy. Now, what is HRZE therapy? So, HRZE therapy is basically a combination of 4 drugs, which is isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol. It is given in an intensive phase of 8 weeks and continued for up to 18 weeks. Medication is given daily, but these medications have some specific side effects per medication, which need to be avoided and prevented. And for that, we give pyridoxine because some patients are potent towards neuropathy being happened. So that cases we require pyridoxine or D6 as a supplement. Also, the other treatment can be surgery for patients wherein hemoptysis, empyema or spinal cord compression is present because of the increasing lesions and the deposits of cavitated Ghon's complex. Also, we have compliance concerns because coming to the side effects of these 4 drugs. So H stands for isoniazid, R stands for rifampicin, Z stands for pyrazinamide, and E stands for ethambutol. Talking about the specific side effect of each drug, which we need to keep in mind when we are prescribing the patient for these drugs, because the treatment is a long-term treatment and follow-up is required. So isoniazid can lead to peripheral neuropathy, which is why we need to give the patient vitamin B6 supplements. Secondly, rifampicin can lead to orange discoloration of the body fluids. So the patient must be informed beforehand so that the patient doesn't get panicked when he sees his sweat, saliva or urine turning orange. Next, pyrazinamide can lead to hyperuricemia, where uric acid concentration increases. And lastly, ethambutol can lead to optic neuritis. So these are the side effects which these drugs come along. Therefore, the patient must be followed up after some time of the drug being started, so that these side effects can be controlled at the right time. Now, after we know the treatment of the disease, we need to know what is the prognosis when such patients have been treated. So the prognosis is variable because multi-systems can get involved if the infection spreads via the blood. And the prevention of such thing is made sure that the directly observed therapy short course is maintained. That is the DOTS protocol, wherein the patient is directly observed for whatever drug is being taken. And if that is done, the prognosis of the case can be positive. Also, the factors affecting the prognosis include age, immune status, comorbidities, and the compliance. So obviously, elder patients who have immunocompromised diseases like AIDS or diabetes, hypertension, thyroidism, they already have their immunity being low. They might be consuming steroids or other drugs, which decreases the compliance of the patient towards additional medication. So that can also affect the prognosis of the treatment. Coming towards the complications, if the treatment is insufficient or is taken lightly, it can lead to massive hemoptysis, wherein a lot of blood is extirpated outside. There is bronchiectasis and aspergilloma can occur, which is secondary infection with another bacteria. Now, one different type of TB which we studied in pulmonary TB was extrapulmonary tuberculosis, wherein hematogenous spread of the bacilli can get impregnated into other organs, leading to extrapulmonary tuberculosis. In this case, it can affect any organ of the body and happens due to hematogenous spread of the infection, as we've studied. It is more common in people with HIV because the immunity is already compromised. The most common site are the cervical lymph nodes because they always try to fight against the infection which is present in the body. Now, what all organ systems can get involved where TB bacilli can reach? It is gastrointestinal, wherein ileocecal involvement can happen and it leads to pain, diarrhea, and ascites, wherein fluid collection and retention happens in the abdomen. Then there is genitourinary, wherein the renal system can get involved. Hematuria, sterile pyuria, prostatitis, and infertility can happen because the inflammation occurs, which leads to urine being contaminated by blood. There can be pus formation, abscess formation, and inflammation of the prostate, which can eventually lead to infertility in males. Next, nervous system being involved can lead to meningitis and tuberculoma, wherein lesions of the tubercle bacilli can be present in the brain and the spinal cord. In the bones, it can lead to spinal tuberculosis and arthritis. And the diagnosis for extrapulmonary tuberculosis is usually similar to the pulmonary one, but also we can do biopsy of the lesion which is present in the specific organ, followed by molecular tests or culturing for the bacilli. The treatment stays the same, which is HRZE therapy. The anti-TB drugs are required, but since the spread is massive now, we need to decrease the immune response of the body. And for that, we can give corticosteroids. And also, if any lesion is elaborate and is causing caseating necrosis, we might need surgical management for that. So this is how we can compile the topic of pulmonary tuberculosis under the mentioned headings. And if you always read via the headings, it's going to be very important to compile a topic. And one suggestion I would like to give is also to open the app of MediStudy Go right now, read this mind map from there directly as you can visualize on my screen, and then create a flashcard for yourself. If you create 10 such flashcards right now, revise this topic. Firstly, you're not going to forget it easily. Secondly, whenever you come back to it, you'll have questions prepared which you can easily solve. For example, I'm going to give you a flashcard right now for this topic. So first line anti-TB drugs include, suppose the option, this is an MCQ question and you get drugs like NSAIDs, steroids, HRZE therapy, or maybe nucleoside-nucleotide analog. So what will be the option? So in that case, since we've studied, it is going to be HRZE therapy. Now coming to another question, which is based on MCQ, that is the options are present. So the most common site of extrapulmonary TB is lymph nodes, liver, kidney, brain. This is the last thing we studied right now. And the answer goes as lymph nodes. Which one? Cervical lymph nodes. You can view the explanation along with the answer on the app. The app which I'm talking about is the one by MediStudy Go, wherein you can visualize various resources like mind maps, notes, videos, flashcards, and MCQs. Also, you can keep subscribing onto this channel right now, which is the MediStudy Go. Ring the bell icon if you haven't yet, and view the videos for all the subjects of BDS, including general medicine and its topics. If you like this video, do hit a like button. Drop a comment below this video if you have any doubt. And if you are interested in getting the book, the one I showed in the beginning, the mind maps, then you can reach out to us on WhatsApp, or you can even order it from any e-commerce website like Amazon, Flipkart, Dentalcart, and even the website by MediStudy Go. I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, do hit the like button and keep watching.